Hi everyone, welcome to today's session. Have you ever felt overwhelmed or confused doing an environmental impact assessment? Well, you're not alone. They can be complex. But today I'm hoping to make it easier for you. I'll be taking you through the 7 key stages of environmental impact assessments, or EIA for short. And I'll do it in a way that's simple, clear, and practical. So let's get started. So here's the deal with environmental impact assessment stages. Think of them like a GPS for your project. You know how a GPS warns you about traffic jams ahead so you can take a different route? Well, that's exactly what these 7 EIA stages do for environmental challenges. Let me tell you about this developer in Colorado who is very excited about a picturesque mountain location resort project. Everything looked like smooth sailing, and they didn't really want to take a lot of time on their environmental impact assessment, so they skipped a few stages. Halfway through the construction, they find out construction runoff is contaminating a local wetlands, one that was not found during the scoping stage, which they had rushed through. So the project gets stopped in its tracks. They end up going over budget by about 400%, and the project gets extended by years. So that's why it's very important to get these stages correct. Each one builds on the last, and those building blocks create a safety net around your project. Missing one step can mean major headaches down the road. All right, now let's take a step back and look at the big picture. Here on this slide is your complete EIA roadmap. These 7 stages will take you from, hey, I have a project idea, all the way to we're successfully operating and staying compliant. Think of this like a recipe. You can't really skip the steps or do them out of order without messing up the final result. So stage 1, screening. This is where you figure out, do I actually need to go through this whole process? And don't assume you know the answer. I've seen too many people guess wrong here. Then there's scoping. This is where you map out exactly what you're going to study. It's like planning a research project, except the stakes are way higher and you've got a bunch of people looking over your shoulder. Stage 3 is where the real detective work happens, the impact assessment and mitigation. You're identifying problems and solving them at the same time, which is actually pretty cool when you think about it. Impact management is the how are we actually going to make this happen in the real world stage. Great plans are useless if no one can interpret them. The report creation stage is where you become the translator, turning all your technical work into something everyone can understand and act on. Review and approval is where you find out if you did your homework right. The regulators and the public get their say here. And finally, monitoring. This is where you prove that all your predictions and promises actually work in practice. Each stage builds upon the last one, so getting the early ones right makes everything else much smoother. Miss something early on, and you'll feel it all the way through the process. First, let's talk about the early stages, which are stages 1 and 2, screening and scoping. Screening determines the environmental assessment requirements moving forward based upon several factors. This is also where a lot of people can get tripped up. So you've got your project idea and you're thinking, do I need a full EIA or can I do something simpler? Here's the thing, it's not just about how big your project is. I've seen developers go, oh, it's just a small facility, we'll be fine. And then surprise, they're right next to wetlands or an endangered species habitat. Suddenly, that small project needs the same comprehensive assessment as a large manufacturing facility. Here's my advice. When you're doing screening, be a little paranoid. Give more information than you think is needed. I know it feels like extra work up front, but trust me, spending a few extra days doing a thorough screening beats spending months of delays later. Now we're getting into scoping, and this is where you can really set yourself up for success. Or the opposite. Scoping is like planning a road trip. You need to know where you're going, what route you'll take, and what you might encounter along the way. What's the biggest mistake I see? People thinking they can figure it out in isolation. Wrong. You need to talk with everyone. People in the community, environmental groups, regulators, technical experts, and anyone else you think may be impacted by the project. A big mistake during scoping is neglecting that community engagement. This issue was actually hanging up a developer in my community. We have farmland right next to a school and suburban neighborhoods. A developer bought the land and wants to build 80 houses there. But guess who they never interacted with? the school board, the community, the homeowners associations? Not anyone. So they went to a city council meeting where they presented their plan and needed to get the approval. And tons of upset people from the community showed up, including the school principal. They were complaining about the increased traffic and other potential impact issues. The plan ended up being denied, and now the developer has spent months reworking their plan before they can even present it again and move forward. So the lesson? Spend time upfront talking to people during your scoping phase. It might feel like you're inviting negative feedback, but every concern you address now is one less crisis later. Next, we get into the core assessment, and this is where things get really interesting. First is impact assessment and mitigation planning. This is the CSI part of the environmental work, where you're looking for clues to connect the dots that aren't always obvious. So, yes, your construction project's going to remove some trees. That's the easy part. But here's what keeps assessors up at night. What happens next? Will all that human activity change how wildlife moves through the area? Is your project going to mess with water runoff 3 miles down the road? These indirect impacts are the sneaky ones that can get you if you're not careful. You're also looking at mitigation. If you can't avoid the impact, can you minimize or offset it? And only as a last resort, you compensate for it. All right, so you've got all these great plans for protecting the environment. Now what? Now you go into impact management planning. And what you need to answer here is who's going to do this stuff? When are they going to do it? How are they going to do it? How will you know if it's working? And this is the big one. What is plan B for unexpected impacts that might come up? It's also important to remember that impact management can't be separate from the overall project management plan. They both need to work hand in hand. So when you're putting together your planning, keep in mind that these things should be communicated to the project manager at the proper time. Now it's time to put it all together into your EIA report. And let me tell you, this is where communication skills matter just as much as technical knowledge. Your report is like a translator that has to speak multiple languages fluently. The regulators want all the technical nitty-gritty details. The community wants to understand, what does this mean for my backyard? And your project team needs clear marching orders. It's like being asked to write a manual for rocket science that your grandmother could understand. It's challenging, but totally doable. Here's my secret weapon. Visuals, visuals, visuals. Maps, charts, before after photos, anything that helps people see what you're talking about. One good aerial photo can explain more than 10 pages of technical text. Now, once your report is done, it goes into the review phase. And don't take it personally if they come back with a million questions. The back and forth is totally normal. And here we are at the final stage, monitoring and adaptive management. This is your reality check phase. Remember all those predictions you made about environmental impacts? all those mitigation measures you designed? Well, now you get to find out if you were right, and so does everyone else. The monitoring part is your early warning system. You're tracking things like water quality, wildlife populations, noise levels, whatever matters for your specific project and that you laid out in your environmental assessment. When something doesn't look right, that's where adaptive management kicks in. This is your plan B. The cool thing about monitoring data is that it just doesn't help your current project. It makes you better at predicting impacts for future projects as well. It's like building up your environmental crystal ball. Okay, so what are some of our key takeaways from the video? First, plan early and use the process. EIA isn't a last minute thing. Engage stakeholders. Community involvement improves outcomes. Don't skip any stages. Each stage safeguards your project and sets you up for success in the next one. And take it one step at a time. It's easy to get overwhelmed when you're faced with a big EIA project. Just focus on the stage you're working on now, and then you can move to the next one. So there you have it, your complete roadmap to all 7 stages in the environmental impact assessment. But here's the thing, this video is a quick overview. If you want a more detailed walkthrough, check out our guide at assessmentstools.com. I'll put the link in the description. We also put out tons of video content. So if you like what you see and you want to be notified of new content, go ahead and hit subscribe. Oh, and hey, we'd love to hear from you as well. Do you have an environmental assessment challenge? Drop it in the comments and let's solve the problem together. Your question might make it into our next video.